Welcome back to the Dan Corder Show. South Africa is a movie and you're on the watch party. Now, we are going to take a proper look, a deep dive at a housing crisis that combines many issues that South Africa faces, including cities becoming unaffordable for normal people, gentrification, foreigners at Gate and Mackenzie, and when tourism, which is usually a blessing, actually becomes a curse. So, of course, for this story, we're going to Cape Town, South Africa's annoying, good-looking sibling, who was born with natural good looks that he did not earn. And from that natural beauty, he got modeling work at a young age, which earned him a phenomenal amount of money that he did not earn. He was just pretty. And now he believes he's better than you because he's richer and more famous, even though it's not due to any earned ability. He's just got pretty privilege. Let's be honest, Cape Town, that's what you are. And I say that as a born and raised Cape Townian, you're literally just hot. And to be fair, that's a great thing to be. It's great being hot. I wish I was hot. And Cape Town is a bona fide cutie, which is why Cape Town has become one of the most famous and popular tourist destinations in the whole world. It consistently ranks top, or at least top 3, on rankings of best places to go. It welcomes millions of international tourists every single year. And that's been great for Cape Town and South Africa's economy. But now there are some serious warning signs for what extreme tourism is doing to the city and its people. And for this, we need to talk about Airbnb, the hugely popular app that lets you rent out your property on your terms to travelers and lets travelers choose from many different arrangements to find a great place to stay. Airbnb took the world by storm by outmaneuvering the established tourism industry, mainly by undercutting hotels on price and convenience, offering cheaper deals than hotels were offering. Airbnb was able to easily beat established rivals on price because it had enormous financial backing, which meant it could afford to make a massive loss every year so that it could hammer the hotel's business into submission. This is a common business strategy that has been used by many other companies, including Uber. You offer a really cheap deal while running at a massive loss until you drive your rivals out of business, and then you have all the customers. And then when you have all the customers and they don't have a choice but to go with you, you ramp up the price and the investors make all their money back and more. Does that make sense? Yeah. The customers have to go with you, even though it's more expensive, and often even as the quality of the service you offer gets worse, because customers have nowhere else to go. And let's be honest, Uber is not what it once was. Yeah. And companies can then get away with crazy things. Did you guys hear? Uber has been accused of monitoring your phone's battery life and charging you more for trips when you're low on battery because you're desperate. This is from an investigation in Belgium. They literally have been accused of charging you when you're more vulnerable, people. Like giving you surge pricing because you're on 1%. Now, I do need to say, Uber has denied these allegations, but it is indicative of a big way that Uber and Airbnb cuts costs so they can offer cheaper deals than their industry rivals. It's because Uber and Airbnb dodge regulation. The taxi and the hotel industry are heavily regulated to protect workers and customers. Companies have to spend money to run their businesses in line with regulations for workers and customers. But for years, Airbnb and Uber have operated directly with workers and customers on apps, which makes them incredibly hard to regulate, and our own politicians have shown a stunningly slow speed to try and regulate these companies. They don't seem interested at all. Uber and Airbnb can literally do things that their rivals can't do, because if their rivals do it, they'll be breaking the regulations. But Uber and Airbnb can get away with it just fine. And Airbnb has reached the same part of the business cycle that Uber has, and its dominance is mad, guys. In Cape Town, extra mad. Cape Town now has over 29,000 Airbnbs. We checked this morning. That's more than Berlin. It's more than Barcelona. It's more than Amsterdam, San Francisco, and Singapore combined. Now, that might sound great from one perspective. More rooms means more tourists, more money, more business, more jobs, right? Well, if it's that simple, then why are many cities around the world taking drastic steps against Airbnb? Just last month, Barcelona's mayor vowed not to renew any of the 10,101 tourist licenses granted to landlords when they expire in 2028. He said ending these licenses would equate to instantly creating 10,000 new homes for Barcelona residents. He says that mass tourism and Airbnb's part in mass tourism has pushed thousands of people out of their homes in Barcelona. Because when places are made for tourists, they are made for people with money. So the rental is much higher than locals can afford. And more places for tourists means less places for locals to rent, but the same number of locals looking to stay in their home area. More demand for fewer places means landlords can drive up rental prices. And the rent in Barcelona has increased 70% in the last 10 years. And just yesterday, actually, we'd already written the script, but just yesterday, Barcelona locals found a very creative way to protest against the situation. They squirted tourists at restaurants with water guns. Can you imagine this happening in Camps Bay? Like, can you imagine what there would be violence? And just so we're clear, guys, most Airbnbs are not families renting out their spare room or renting out their home while they're away. Most Airbnbs around the world and in Cape Town are owned by landowners who have bought up dozens of places to rent out on the platform. Some people in Cape Town own more than 150 properties listed on Airbnb. So locals are literally being bought out of their neighborhoods. And these super owners don't have to follow any regulations that hotels or bed and breakfasts have to follow. And it's worse than that, actually. Mass tourism also destroys businesses that locals need. Because if there's more money in selling imported coffee, avocado on toast, and mimosas to foreigners, why keep your general grocery store open? If there's more money in high-end boutique fashion for tourists, then why keep your everyday clothing store going? So the result is the city becomes unaffordable and unlivable, and locals are driven out of their own neighborhoods. And this isn't new. In Berlin, in 2016, 8 years ago, the government saw that mass tourism through services like Airbnb was causing rent hikes and displacement, and so the government took serious steps to regulate the short-term rental market to protect the city and its people. But in Cape Town, the government seems to not mind what mass tourism is doing to its people at all. In fact, since 2017, the DA-run local government has actively collaborated with Airbnb to get more Airbnbs in Cape Town. Here is once DA and now returning South African Minister of Tourism, Patricia de Lille, looking very happy with their Airbnb deal. They even created a new bylaw recently which allows for short-term home letting for up to 30 days, which makes it even easier for homeowners to rent out their properties on services like Airbnb. And if you're grappling right now, if you're wondering how a company can get so far with a political organization and get away with being unregulated for such a long time, let me explain to you how politics works. This is Gwen Ngwenya. She's Airbnb's head of public policy for Africa and the Middle East. Before that, she was the head of the DA's federal policy unit, responsible for development and alignment of national DA policy for the whole country. And that's not a state secret, by the way. That's on her LinkedIn from this morning. That's how business buys off politics. I know. Thank you. Thank you. I knew I should have invited a crowd. And when asked about mass tourism, the Blue people and Airbnb trumpet the benefits of Airbnb to the economy through the strengthened tourism sector. But is there even reliable evidence of that? Because Patricia de Lille herself says that there isn't enough information available on Airbnb in South Africa to place restrictions on it. You don't know? And the only real claim about Airbnb in South Africa is by Airbnb itself. And you know they're basically going to write their own Tinder bio in this case. Airbnb claims that it has made more than 8 billion rand for our economy and created more than 20,000 jobs. And that sounds impressive, but the question obviously is, would there have been more money in our economy and more jobs without Airbnb? And newsflash, in every single country in the whole world, hotels create more jobs than Airbnbs. Every single one. And tourists are going to spend money on their travels, whether they're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb. So Airbnb can't claim that the money from these tourists staying in Airbnbs wouldn't have happened otherwise if they'd stayed in hotels. And Airbnbs in many of Cape Town's tourist hotspots are now more expensive than hotels anyway. And again, where is that money going? It's not going into the economy. It's not going into new jobs. It's going directly to the pockets of landowners at the expense of everybody else. And remember, most Airbnbs are only owned by a few landowners. The ones who own more than 150 properties are making all the money and not following any of the regulations that hotels have to follow. And of course, locals are being driven out. And you know it's bad when rich white Cape Townians are complaining. There is an entire scene on TikTok of particularly young white privileged Cape Townians laughing at frankly absurd rental rates for tiny, horrible little places in Cape Town. But they're laughing in shock and horror because even they are being priced out of the city. Look at some of these deals on offer in Cape Town right now. Here's our first place, 13,950. It had better be really nice inside because that's not, it's not. Hold on, let's see a little more. I don't know, does it get better?
No.
I would live in there and use that table, but not for 13,950. All right, this one's for 16,500. Maybe it gets better. No, guys, somebody died in that room. 2 people died in that room. That is not good. Okay, place 3. This is 12,000 Rand a month. That's the whole place. The kitchen is a ledge across from the bathroom. There's the bathroom. That is quite literally what has happened in Cape Town. It's a joke, but it's an awful joke because the prices are only so high because people are paying for these prices, guys. People are paying for these prices. And unsurprisingly, it is much worse for working class Cape Townians of color who desperately need to live near places of work to make money. Most of their families were removed far away from workplaces by the evils of spatial apartheid. And even those who managed to stay near work centers or move closer after apartheid are being driven away again. Because remember, what's happening to rich white Cape Townians is just gentrification. People move into an area who are wealthier than the locals, and slowly locals are priced out of that neighborhood. And when rich Cape Townians can't afford to live in the most desirable parts of Cape Town, the historically white areas, then they move into historically working class areas, colored or black areas, and their arrival drives out those families over time. And all of this is made harder by digital nomads. These are wealthy foreigners who can do their jobs online. Are the digital nomads here with us tonight? So they can work from anywhere. Recently, governments have tried to attract digital nomads to live in their countries in order to bring in money and business for their economies. Portugal and Mexico have both created digital nomad visas, and the influx of remote workers has driven gentrification and created housing crises in Lisbon and Portugal and Mexico City in Mexico, and it's happening in Cape Town too. Some of these coffee shops are all German. And what's the very first thing that our new Home Affairs Minister did when he got into office a few days ago? He extended a concession to foreigners on visas who are awaiting visa processing from Home Affairs. There's a processing delay due to a backlog of applications, and the new Home Affairs Minister specifically mentioned 2 groups of people he cared about safeguarding: skilled workers and tourists. And which party is this minister from? The Democratic Alliance. By the way, thanks to those who sent me a screenshot of his Twitter announcement, because as of today, it is still the case that Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber has blocked me on Twitter. And I still don't know why. I never spoke on him. So what can we, everyday people, do about this situation? We need to make this crisis a serious political issue and place pressure on our political representatives to put local people, everyday South Africans, at the top of their list of priorities. And we need to do it now. Because people are losing their homes now, their jobs now, their sense of belonging now. I can't tweet the Minister of Home Affairs because I am blocked. But you can. So, if you're watching this right now, get onto Twitter, tweet at Leon_Schreib, it's on the screen, and use the hashtag DentTheRentCPT. Because if we all use that and we get it to trend and get the media to talk about this the way they should be, we can make this a national conversation. At Leon_Schreib, hashtag DentTheRentCPT. You guys gonna go do it? Yeah. Right, well, let's see if we make any change. That's all we have time for on the Dan Quarter Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes in full on enca.com, and we'll see you on Monday at 9:30 p.m. only on DSTV channel 403 and enca.com. South Africa is a movie. This is The Watch Party. Thank you for joining us. Good night. Have a good week.